Hi, I'm Damon, and of course I'm the tattoo artist who's just going over some ideas with Jennifer and Todd. Jennifer is getting the tattoo, and Todd is her lovely partner who is the moral support and
That's right.
Yep. Grounding,
Yep.
everything else.
That's right.
And also, I guess, along for just an enjoyable
Sure.
trip.
Absolutely.
Jennifer, would you like to just give a brief introduction to what your initial thoughts were and why for your tattoo, and then I'll sort of show you some concepts and things.
Sure. So I have the black sun in the center of my back. That was my first tattoo that was not done. I mean, the meaning behind it at the time kind of symbolized action of kind of starting almost like a rebirth from a pretty difficult time in my life. But the artist who did it didn't do it the way that I wanted it. And anyway, it feels heavy and dark in an area of my body that I've had a lot of trauma. And so this is coming from a desire to really break that apart and turn it into something that's more consistent to the energy that I feel like is part of my life right now.
Love and compassion are two of the most important things I find for any of my work. I have to work on someone as if it was myself and no less as far as quality. Energetically, I have to have a lot of compassion for the person. I have to want to understand them. I have to want to feel where they're coming from. I've got some things that you sent me, some ideas, and some of my own.
Right.
And I'm going to make a few suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
I think with saying what you mentioned about having some traumatic experiences, then the tattoo that had a traumatic dimension to it, I guess.
It wasn't traumatic. It just it was my first one, so I was expecting that the artist was going to help me design it, and he didn't, which meant that I drew it. I'm not an artist in terms of, I mean, I consider myself artistic, but I'm not good at drawing, and I don't think that he took it seriously. So we actually ended up, I mean, I think you've seen it. It's solid in the center, and he drew this like evil face in the center as a joke. But because he had done it and then filled it in, you could always see that, you know, so it just, the energy was kind of off about it. The lines weren't precise. But it's not so much about the tattoo. It's more that what it represents has changed.
Every step of the way from when they come in, body language, facial expressions, you know, whether they hold their face tight, there's something that's not coming through, all these little things are just intuitive messages to me on my route, basically in the process, taking them through the consultation, taking them upstairs, making them feel comfortable, making them a tea, whatever it is that helps make them feel at home is of utmost importance, because that's half of the experience right there. If the person's not relaxed and feeling comfortable, they're not going to be able to open up and let go. And I'm not going to be able to open up and let go.
So it's not so much that I got this tattoo and that you know, is why I want to transform it. It's more that what that represents, like when I got that, it was in a very different place. To me, like the sun, it represents like an action. It's very solar, it's very masculine, it's very dark. And I needed that. I was kind of getting out of an extremely abusive relationship and a lot of trauma like in my family. And so for me, I, you know, was getting high every day, and I was in college, and I was like, okay, I'm finding myself, and it was a stamp of I'm moving forward, which at the time was fine, and I still value what that meant, but it's not consistent with who I am today, and that's why it needs to be changed. So
Yeah.
there's a little piece of the element of this guy did this tattoo and
Mhm.
the lines aren't nice and he drew a face in it and whatever. I still hold on to what it meant to me, even though it wasn't done respectfully, but it needs to be,
Despite that aspect to it,
Uh-huh.
it still needs to change.
yeah.
Cool. Well, I've got some ideas. What I'm thinking of in the abstract is, well, number one, if you take a tattoo that you want to cover up, and you probably know this from seeing cover-ups where if you just try to obliterate it, you just make it worse.
Right.
It becomes more obvious.
Right.
So rather than, the term is kind of misleading. Rather than cover up, which makes you think like steamroller or something, my strategy is to use a strategy, is to use ways to draw the eye away from.
Right.
Because the last thing you want to do is just add more
Right.
black.
I agree.
Right.
Uh-huh.
It's heavy enough as it is, so we want to
Pull
use
from
ways to just draw out, to kind of expand the image itself and integrate it in with something else that totally changes the way you perceive it.
Right.
And also working in elements that you want worked in as well. So to integrate it with the things that you like.
Which
and
is
you relate
exactly
to.
what I want. Which is why I'm with you.
The idea is to get them through this process as a facilitator into a place upstairs in the chair where there's some really nice music playing, and that's intuitively placed as well based on what their headspace is, their type of person. Because some music could exaggerate something or agitate the trauma in one person. It could be the perfect music for another. So there's a lot of intuitive stuff even with music. I was told about by my naturopath years ago, a term I might have mentioned it earlier, toxic scar, which is what quite often I'm dealing with in these cases. Someone has a tattoo that was applied in a manner where they have some kind of trauma attached to it, and then that is classified as a toxic scar. There's an emotional content that in some ways prevents the area from healing. It may be physically healed on the surface, but there's something that's not healing. And then, of course, if the person has that toxic scar tattoo over an area that they were getting to try and heal a previous trauma, you've basically got layer upon layer upon layer. And quite often people in these situations, especially if they're the less aware or less work they've done on themselves, this powerful contained memory, painful memory or painful stuff can burst out at any moment because it's not a comfortable place. Even though it is healing, healing sometimes can be painful, and that's where guidance is necessary.
Choosing where and who to have this tattoo or this transformation done by, I'm very particular, even when it comes to, really anything that I do. I think the intention is very significant, if that makes sense. So anyway, it was through conversations with my spiritual teacher, as well as almost just daily meditation about like what I want this solar dark tattoo to be transformed into. I feel like it came to me over months and certainly through my yoga practice. And it was my spiritual teacher that first planted the seed of, this is who you should go to. And that was maybe 8 months ago. And I was kind of in disbelief, like, are we really gonna go to Canada? All the way from Philadelphia just to get this tattoo? And the more that I spent time thinking about it and images came to my mind and it started to gel, I knew that mostly through trusting Leela Bhatti, who is my, like I said, my spiritual teacher, that was a huge part in knowing that I would be safe coming to Damon, and that he's an artist that understands the energy language. So it kind of just became, this is the path. And once I planted the seed, we were talking, I can't believe that we're here.
emotionally, I think this is going to be such a great experience for her that, I'm just so happy to be a part of, just the journey from coming, spending a couple days in Toronto and coming here for a couple days and, just making it that much more special.
Being interviewed yesterday before working with you was a very different experience than what I have now. There was a lot of like anticipation, like we had just met, I knew about you, but I hadn't really felt your work. And so I do just want to say that I think, what you put on your body and who's putting it there is something that shouldn't be underestimated. It's not just about the art or the design, it's the energy behind it, and it also has to do with the energy of the person who's delivering it, which is you. And I feel super lucky that it is you, and just getting tattooed yesterday, you can really feel that, like just your presence and your attention and care and touch, like it has a vibration that you and I talked about that is going into my my physical body, but goes much deeper. And so initially getting tattooed, Todd kind of noticed that I had this emotional experience, a sensation of you tapping into a part of myself that has felt so blocked and deadened for so long, kind of came to life through the sensation of you, needling that part of my body. It's hard to even really put words to what happened. You and I were working together. It was kind of towards the end of the day, and you were going into a part of the tattoo that it wasn't the new part, it was kind of the part that you were shifting.
Yeah.
Right? That sun. And I can remember having a connection to, I remember this feeling from so many years ago. Like that's how it kind of started. Because it almost was like I don't even remember how it happened, but I just became overwhelmed with a feeling of sensation and kind of lost my voice and perception of everything, and kind of got almost nauseous with I don't I guess with sensation or something. And so what I do remember, I guess, is feeling overwhelmed with sensation, and then, asking you that I need a minute. And even saying that was hard to say, and was just flooded with energy is the only way that I know how to talk about it, and broke out into like a full sweat. And I don't know if I passed out, but felt like I blacked out for a moment, and remember kind of coming to with like your voice and having like a cold cloth on my neck, and just feeling an incredible release or sensation in my pelvic area, not where the tattoo was. And anyway, and then subsequent to that, like an hour later, like after I kind of like recovered, like my whole body just felt very released or relaxed. And so to me, like looking back, if I had to put words to what that experience was, I've always talked about having just this blocked energy, and I've had people do a lot of body work on me and say like there's something in there that they can't get to with their hands or with whatever technique they're doing. And whether it was this perfect storm of your energy and whatever was going on and what was being inked and where it was, and even the music had like just stopped. It was like this perfect storm of, and I feel like there was something that you tapped into, that I had to kind of surrender to, and got this just intense release. And still feel that, like I feel that there's been a huge exhale, which I did not anticipate. And for so long I've been seeking a method to unlock that part of my body physically, and didn't really know what it was going, what that vehicle was going to be. I mean, I've tried acupuncture and chiropractor and physical therapy and dry needling and yoga and massage and special body work and rolfing and all of these things to unleash that, and I've done the cognitive emotional piece in terms of being in therapy, but that psychosomatic connection that lives in your body has always been in my mind, like that is my last frontier. And I don't think that it's over, but I do think that tattooing is energy work. It's not just a stamp on your body.
Yesterday was your last day of being tattooed, and then you had hopefully a nice rest last night, and then this morning we ate breakfast. And how do you feel now? What's
to be honest, I almost feel like it's been such a journey that it's going to take some time for it to sink in. Like I feel like it will. I'm almost still in it, and part of it still feels a little bit surreal. So I'm actually looking forward to being home and having a couple of days, and then kind of seeing where I am, because it's still in this. I was actually saying to Todd, I was like, gosh, it just, we were in Toronto for a couple of days, and I was like, that seems so long ago. Like I feel like the time here has almost been, what's the word, like timeless, like time has just kind of stopped and so much has happened. But I feel great. I slept hard last night, and I never anticipated that it was going to be, almost 14 hours of tattooing, but it was great. I loved your space, and got to listen to some music. And
Looking back on Jennifer's tattoo experience, there's a few things that come to mind. Number one, on the technical side, it was a cover-up, and a cover-up of a tattoo. And I shouldn't really say cover-up, because quite often that will give people the idea that it's an old tattoo that's to be decimated, like completely bulldozed over. This is quite a finer challenge and more difficult on the physical level, but also the energetic, because this is what I found was really important. But she had this solar design, very black. It ceased to represent what she had it represent. Her life had changed a lot. She also had some trauma, multiple traumas to that area, and including the trauma of the tattoo artist who applied this solar design, putting some weird little face in it for a joke, and then filling it in later. I had the request of Jennifer wanting a green Tara. The reason why was the energy contained in that image. She wanted to in some way shift the energy of this very solar design. In my mind, and this literally, as soon as I saw the email and the request, my mind started looking at the solar design, and I started picturing this green Tara with clouds, which was in one of the images, sort of sitting, floating over and above the sun, the solar design, and putting sacred geometry, mandala type imagery emitting out from the solar design in a way that it would, as opposed to hiding it from bulldozing over it, it's more integrating with it and just taking it into a new level. So even though you will see that sun, you don't see that sun because you see the sun in a context which divides your focus and takes it into a full fabric of patterns and things. And then also integrating it with the green Tara. So that's the physical challenge that I had and what I brought to the table, which of course I had to introduce to Jennifer when she got here, my suggestions and ideas. Once she understood what I was talking about, she was quite into the idea. Because it is difficult as well to describe some crazy thoughts that us artists have, even to each other, let alone to a client, enough to make them feel comfortable. Now, the other aspect with her tattoo was the trauma, or the multiple traumas she sustained in the past. One from the tattoo artist, one I think was a back injury, and the other issue was abuse from the past. I think sexual abuse from the past. So a lot of traumas, and I've learned in the past that when someone has got a lot of trauma, now Jennifer was very, she's done a lot of work on herself, she was very together, very mature, but even with that situation, I've come to learn that quite often these people can get quite a surprise in the experience, in the sense that they may not be expecting the full intensity energetically of what can happen when they're dealing with trauma that's contained within the body, which is what she was doing. Now, what I always tell people to do, and this is from a way back from a few experiences where people will say, I think I'm gonna get my tattoo here, but my husband says get it over here. And I've come to tell people to go with their heart scent feeling, not to go with what someone else says or what you second guess. And the reason why I say this is because I think that there's an inner intelligence. I know there is an inner intelligence, a wisdom within each of us, and my process is to guide, or my job is to guide people through a process of coming into more wholeness, or into wholeness with themselves. And that is also meaning coming into acknowledging that there is a wisdom and a wholeness within ourselves. So I'm the facilitator, I'm the midwife, and my job is to help ease people through their own self-empowerment and movement towards wholeness.